Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to Fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's Fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
Carol Ann! Carol Ann!
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, the world's greatest horror movie podcast.
In this episode, my weird dad will be talking about...
Don't adjust the television set. Your reception's fine, but in their new suburban home, the Freeling family has tuned into something beyond our world. Poltergeist. You'll never look at your television set the same way again. Poltergeist, a Steven Spielberg production, rated PG.
Now playing at a theater near you, check newspapers.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Wake Up Heavy. This is Mark Begley, your host, and today I am joined by the host of the Kulturecast podcast, Mr. Chris Stachiw.
Because you always do this on my podcast, I'll do it for your podcast. Carol Ann! Carol Ann! Just like for 10 minutes straight. Carol Ann!
I'm going to do a supercut of all the Carol Anns in part 3.
Do not. Do not do that. Please don't do that. For the love of God. I mean, who would want to listen to that? Someone would.
Yeah.
But would you want to hear Nancy Allen say Carol Ann like 30 times in a row?
Sure.
If you do, well, we did, so.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann. Carol Ann. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann. Carol Ann. Oh, Carol Ann.
And we are crossing over again with the Kulturecast on this episode, as Chris will be sharing our discussion on the new Conjuring film and other films in the Conjuring universe with Wake Up Heavy. Wake Up Heavy will be sharing today's discussion with him. Today we will be talking about Poltergeist, the 1982 classic film by Tobe Hooper, ? As well as its 2 sequels and the 2015 remake. Poltergeist is the story of hippies turned yuppies, Steve and Diane Freeling and their suburbanite kids, Dana, Robbie, and little Carol Ann, who are terrorized by their TV, a gnarly tree, a sadistic stuffed clown, and the Beast, all in their tract home in the sun-drenched SoCal-gated community of Cuesta Verde. Chris, I know Poltergeist holds a special place in your heart. Tell us how your first experience with this film went.
What's really funny about this story is I've actually told this story one other time, but the podcast that it was told on ended up never coming out. We kind of recorded it, and then it never went anywhere, so that story never got told, or aired, I guess. Initially, early on, when I was a kid, I saw this movie at our babysitter's house, and our babysitter had put it on for us, and then had gotten a Halloween mask on and jumped out while the movie was playing. I mean, that's pretty traumatizing for a kid, obviously. As it probably would have been 4, somewhere between 4 to 6, I would assume. And I mean, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And, the scene where the guy is pulling his face off, still good today, still works today, doesn't work as well as it did in the eyes of a 6-year-old or 5-year-old, but that was my first time watching the movie, and it kind of put me off to horror movies entirely. Until I was about 16 or 17. And then I kind of revisited horror movies and fell in love with horror movies. And now it's kind of, my thing. As it is for so many of us. I don't have stories of loving Freddy and Jason as a precocious teen. But late teenager. Poltergeist holds a special place in my heart because it royally fucked me up. For 10 years, essentially. It's not that scary of a movie. It's more horror comfort food at this point than it is a movie that is genuinely scary. But again, if you show it to a kid, it's still pretty scary for a little kid. Because I think it involving a little kid makes it scarier for little kids.
We have multiple, not just Carol Ann, but Robbie goes through the ringer a couple of times, and
children in peril constantly in these films.
Which works if you're younger, especially, and I think it's got some still pretty decent scares. When I think about my daughter and showing it to her for the first time, the clown scene comes to mind, and a couple other things where I think, okay, I saw this almost at exactly the same age she did for the first time. By that point, things didn't scare me so much, but you can still recognize the creepiness of the scene as it's playing out. And I've also kind of told my Poltergeist story before as well, briefly on my show. And I wasn't concerned about the scares in the film, because I spent my Saturdays prior to when this came out watching old horror movies on Channel 26, and stuff didn't creep me out to where I would have bad dreams and things like that. It was just always the weird things that would play with my mind. I was more concerned about the gross out aspect of this movie because I had heard about however kids at 13 years old back in 1982 hear about these things. I had heard about the face peeling scene, and the year prior when Raiders of the Lost Ark came out, I actually left the theater before the movie started, left my sister and her friend in the theater to watch the movie because I had heard about the face melting scene in that. And my fear was that I was going to throw up in the middle of the theater because I had a weak stomach when it came to gross stuff. And so I didn't see Raiders for years. And with Poltergeist, I think we went as a family. I think my sister, my mom, and I went. I couldn't leave and walk home like I did with Raiders. Although I didn't walk home. This actually took place. The Raiders situation took place in Lake Tahoe when we were on vacation. And I walked back to the condo we were staying in, blah, blah, blah. What was I going to do? And I had in my head, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom when I think this scene is going to happen. And I started to do that because even though I had no clue whose face gets peeled off, when it happens in the movie, you kind of get, okay, something's going on. The steak turns inside out. There's maggots in the chicken. Okay, it's coming. He's looking in a mirror. And so I started walking up the aisle and couldn't help but turn back. And when I saw it happening, I watched the whole thing, didn't get nauseous, didn't get sick. And that was, for me, that swung the gates wide open. And it's the evolution for me, like the shot in 2001 where we go from the bone to the spaceship. I don't remember what happened between Poltergeist and The Thing, but for me, that was the evolutionary step. I realized this stuff wasn't going to make me throw up. The next thing I remember watching is The Thing, with its just massive amounts of practical, gory, gloopy, disgusting effects, and it didn't bother me one single bit. And the rest was, history. That's all we rented were horror movies, basically, and kind of what the impetus for this show is. Having said all that, I have always loved Poltergeist. I think it's one of my favorite horror movies, and I will watch it anytime I catch it on cable or TV. And I don't know how many times I watched it as a kid. I watch it at least once a year. And now I can also watch it with my daughter. So when I started prepping for this episode, I threw it on because I was going to watch the other ones and watch the remake. My wife and daughter happened to come home.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wonderside's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wonderside.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wonderside.com. Wonderside. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wonderside today.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Right after I started it, and Cleo saw that I was watching it, and she sat right down and was ready to go. Passing the Poltergeist torch on is kind of fun, too.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, apparently, with the love of Poltergeist.
Yeah, for Poltergeist. Maybe not for all the ones I've shown her, but she's pretty game for most of what we have watched. The Alien movies have become pretty popular, and I'm looking forward to showing her Predator and some other 80s classics that I love.
Predator 2.
Yeah. We might skip that one, but who knows? She kind of sucks me back into a lot of the sequels of things that I've either not caught or sort of have dismissed over the years. What was the next time you watched Poltergeist itself?
Off the top of my head, I should have thought about this question, but I don't know even if I sat here and really thought about it and, come back to me later. I'm not sure I could give you an answer because I think what ended up happening was I ended up just watching it being that was it. At that point, for me, it's kind of like your story, but it's a little different. It pushed me in the opposite direction. When I finally got into horror movies, what got me into horror movies was I was doing a project in high school. It was an English project. It was pick a genre of film and do a report on it with a group. And my group wanted to do horror movies, and I was like, all right, well, fuck it, let's go. Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, Dawn of the Dead. That was for me where it was floodgates open, but I don't remember. See, this is what I don't remember. I don't remember if I watched Poltergeist then, because that would have been 2007. So I was in high school in 2007. graduated in 2008, so sometime between 2006 and 2010, I probably rewatched Poltergeist. Because I've seen it recently, because, I kind of gauge a lot of the things when I met my wife, which is 10 years ago. I know I've watched it in the last 10 years, but the last 10 years when I've watched it, I had already seen it as an adult. And yeah, I just watched it and I was like, well, so what? As we've already said, it's not scary. It's not scary to me as an adult.
Right.
But this is a movie that I think is unlike a lot of horror movies out there, that it's scary when you're a kid for the reasons it's supposed to be, that are intentional. Predator and Alien are scary to adults, too. The alien is a scary creature. Like, yeah, maybe I don't find the movie scary, but you wouldn't want to, meet an alien in a dark alley, in the middle of the night. No one wants to do that. But Poltergeist is just one of these films where it really works as a movie to scare the shit out of kids. That's what it feels like. And you know what? We'll talk about the creative contributions and who, what, and how, and if that really matters, which I don't think it does. Spoilers. Given who's involved, the way this movie is made makes a lot of sense because it's very effective at doing what I assume they were both trying to do.
Being made sort of as an intentional gateway movie might be what Spielberg was going for in the writing of this. I mean, that feels to me like a very distinct possibility.
And that's what E.T. is, isn't it?
The genesis of E.T. being more of a horror movie to begin with.
Yeah.
What was it? Night Skies?
Night Terrors.
Something like that.
Well, the sequel was Night Terrors, right?
I just know that it was intended to not be the friendly E.T. that we got. It was supposed to be a horrifying E.T. with, I'm sure, the intent of being directed at a younger audience, not an adult horror movie.
We were close, by the way. It's Nocturnal Fears.
Oh. Huh.
Right? I thought it was Night Terrors.
I thought it was Night something, too. They may have changed that at some point, because I don't remember ever hearing Nocturnal Fears.
Is that like a Mandela effect thing?
It could be.
Is that from the universe that we were from?
It could be, yes.
I mean, it feels like it because I definitely don't remember it being Nocturnal Fears.
I don't either at all. How funny. I would think that that was probably the intent. And this is where we kind of get into the issue of this was one of the movies that forced a new rating.
Yep.
There were tons of movies from 82 and 83 that made that happen. And
Raiders is on that list.
And I can understand why that face peeling scene is a bit much for your 5, 6, or 7-year-old, I would say, especially at that time in the 80s when things were still pretty much controlled by parents and who saw what. I mean, I remember when I used to substitute teach and second graders were telling me they watched Freddy, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but at that point, Freddy's cool, man. They're watching it for Freddy, right?
Which I have a serious problem with.
What, watching it for Freddy?
Watching it for Freddy, having it be Freddy, all about the wisecracking Freddy.
I'm with you on that. I mean, as much as I love the third one, which I think everybody who's a Nightmare fan does, it's like people, is a random analogy, but it's like people who like the Resident Evil video game series. They like the fourth game, but everybody also says like the fourth game is kind of where the series took a turn. Nightmare 3 is like, it's a great movie, everybody loves it, but it is the moment where the series took a turn into like, I'm Freddy, cool graphics, like, oh god.
No, the quips never have worked for me in that whole deal, but we skirt around the creative issue like you mentioned, and like I kind of winked at it in my opening.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondersight comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wonderside's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wonderside.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wonderside.com. Wonderside. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wonderside today.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
But I, as a kid, for who knows however many years, thought that this was a Steven Spielberg directed movie.
Can't imagine why.
I didn't really know what directors did when this movie came out. I just know that it was touted as a Spielberg production, and I probably didn't know what the difference between a producer and a director was at that point. A week after this movie came out, E.T. came out. I mean, it was the summer of Spielberg. That's what it was called, even back then. And I thought both of these movies were by the same person. They took place in the same universe. Didn't know anything about Tobe Hooper until I don't know how many years later that, oh wait, he directed it? Oh, okay. It doesn't feel like a Tobe Hooper movie. It feels like a Steven Spielberg movie. And I've read the varying stories. Craig T. Nelson says this, so-and-so says this, Spielberg says this. I'm not sure what Tobe Hooper has said about it. I'm sure he got really tired of it after a while. But it definitely feels like a Spielberg movie. And I know that they get into this on the Projection Booth episode about this. And one of the guys that Mike interviewed who wrote a book either about the movie or about Hooper. It's that thing where, like these days with the Candyman remake, and it's being touted as Jordan Peele's Candyman, and he's not the director of the film, it's Nia DaCosta. So it's the same kind of idea where the studio and everybody else is going to sell you on the fact that Steven Spielberg is connected to this movie in some way.
They still do it, right? I mean, they do it and they assume that people don't know what the difference between a director and a producer is. From the people that brought you. And it's like, that could literally be an associate producer.
From one of the producers of...
Yeah, that doesn't sound as good as the people who brought you.
I still hear that. I hear from one of the producers of.
Course.
And it's like, well, yeah, there were 15 executive producers on that.
Simon Kinberg presents, like, no. And, you know, to your point, again, as someone who had no frame of reference, I loved movies growing up, but horror movies were just not my thing. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I think at this point we need to just make it and move on. It doesn't matter who directed this movie. It's a Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
In the court of public opinion, which is kind of the court that matters in a lot of respects, because that's what the general consensus is ever going to be. If someone watches it, they will more than likely say it is a Steven Spielberg film. And this is not J.J. Abrams doing Steven Spielberg. This is Steven Spielberg, essentially doing Steven Spielberg. The thing I do not understand, the thing I do not get, the thing that always confuses me, as it may confuse so many, is if it's a Spielberg movie, why didn't he just direct it?
That was because of the Directors Guild. The rules back then, he couldn't direct 2 movies at the same time.
So everybody's covering for Spielberg.
It just depends on what you read and what you hear. I tend to lean more towards Hooper was there and setting up shots and doing these things. And maybe it's just me trying to not be really cynical. I don't think he was a beard for Steven Spielberg, like stand here by the camera in case somebody from the DGA shows up.
No, I don't think so either. He was there. There's no question of that.
Like you're getting at, it's the feel, it's the DNA of the movie. I mean, he wrote the script, produced with his usual production team, assuming had his fingers in everything from editing to score to set design. I don't know if it's the exact same crew as E.T. or anything like that, but again, they feel so similar. They take place in the same kind of suburban tract housing.
Lighting is the same.
I remember when we would drive to LA when we were kids to visit family, we'd pass through those types of developments, and I'd always wonder, I wonder if one of these is where they filmed Poltergeist or E.T., because you could see them off I-5, these very similar tract home areas like that. That whole suburban feel of the films, and coming out within a week of each other, and me seeing them probably very close to each other back then. Everything else just feels like a Spielberg movie, and you can't escape that.
The issue here is it's twofold. Obviously, you cut to the core of it. It's the Spielberg DNA. It feels like a Spielberg movie, looks like a Spielberg movie, sounds like a Spielberg movie. It's not dark like a Spielberg movie. It still has a positive ending. Spielberg movies are normally not uplifting, but they tend to be rather positive. Even something like Saving Private Ryan, stuff like that. So it has a very genuine and endearing feel to it. And also, when anyone's like, Hooper was there, what does a Tobe Hooper movie look like? I could not tell you other than Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I can tell you my opinion on this movie is, if that's the kind of baseline that I have to go off of, evidence would suggest Spielberg more than Hooper, because I have more evidence to point at from other things that are way too close to this that Spielberg has done. Hooper, not so much.
This doesn't feel anything like a Tobe Hooper film. I don't have an extensive knowledge of his films, but of the films I've seen, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, Eaten Alive, Life Force, Invaders from Mars, and I'm forgetting one or two.
You named all the big ones.
It's not even so much the look of them. There is a tone. There is a bizarre tone and feel in those movies, and part of that comes from the look. He has a very different kind of sensibility. A number of those have a really dark humor that almost doesn't even feel like humor, like real odd things going on in those movies, particularly Eaten Alive, which is just a trip. Yeah, you need to kind of show me what the other movies are of his that feel like this. And I'm not saying he wasn't talented, because I enjoy a lot of those movies for what they are. I can't think of a scene in this movie that has that odd touch of his in it, that real dry, sardonic, dark humor, and just off-kilter B-movie, low-budget movie taste. All of that, I guess, is, like you say, it doesn't matter. The movie exists as it is. It's a classic. It's a personal favorite of mine, like I mentioned. Part of that is that family dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
That very Spielbergian family dynamic, and it's almost the same kind of setup as E.T. again, and other films where you've got this nuclear family, and they're all very pleasant.
This could be the family that lives next to E.T. You know what I mean?
That lives next to the people in Close Encounters even, or even in Jaws. That
they could all be in the same neighborhood.
The pleasant family with the kids that aren't disgustingly precocious, but obviously very cute and warm and fuzzy. And that's one of the things that, and we'll get to that when we talk about the remake, that's so different with that film. But I really like the people in this movie. I love the parents and the kids for what they're given. I mean, Carol Ann disappears pretty quickly into the movie, and Dana is a character that isn't given really anything to do, and Robbie is removed from the film as well for a while there. It's got that. lovable kid aspect to it. They, of course, are the ones that suffer the most during the film. And I think that's partly, like you said, where some of the scares and stuff come from for younger people or maybe, for people with kids of their own.
It taps into like the most basic fears, like a tree outside your window or the clown stuffed animal that like undoubtedly so many children had in their bedrooms. Like it really is a child's first step into horror, but an adult could watch it too to get that nostalgic kick that Spielberg movies offer. I mean, Spielberg movies, offer like an endorphin rush of nostalgia. Not in a bad way. Like, I love me some Jaws as much as the next person or Raiders or anything else. What's weird to me about this movie is, again, ultimately, doesn't matter who directed it, because it is such a good movie that it kind of feels like the quintessential 80s horror movie, right? I mean, you talk about Tobe Hooper, and you talk about Texas Chainsaw. This movie and Texas Chainsaw are just as important, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're just as important to the genre of horror. So it doesn't matter. And this movie had 3 sequels, or 2 sequels, a TV show, and a remake. Everybody made money in the end. I don't really feel bad for anybody. Somebody's cashing Poltergeist checks to this day. And you know what? That's because it's a good movie. It's never going to go away. It's getting supposedly remade by the Russo brothers. Who knows? Don't need another remake. Not because the new remake's bad, but just because this movie is one of those movies that doesn't need to be remade because it's so good it doesn't necessitate a remake. It's like Jaws or Back to the Future.
Pick the duds to remake. Pick the ones that kind of failed.
I'd never seen the sequels, so this was a completely new watching experience for me. So I want to let you and your audience know. You had said, hey, we're going to talk about Poltergeist, and then I was like, well, should I watch the sequels? And you were like, well, it probably wouldn't hurt. And I was like, okay. And then so I got you back, and I was like, what about the remake? And you're like, well, I'll put it on the Plex server, and I'll watch it. And you're like, damn you! So I'd never seen 2 or 3 or the remake, just to preface the rest of this conversation.
I think I saw the sequel in the theater. It's possible I only rented it, but I know I saw it shortly after it came out, the Poltergeist 2, The Other Side.
They really missed an opportunity to call it the Geistening.
The Geistinator.
Poltergeist 2, Judgment Day.
Kane's Judgment.
Yeah.
I want to say I saw it in the theater and was not impressed with it and skipped the third one because that came out in 88, and by then I was already sort of slowly moving away from definitely mainstream horror and getting into weirder stuff by then and cult movies and other things. I don't remember when I saw the third one. Might have been, I have a recollection of seeing it at some point, at least in parts, because when I did watch it a few years ago, there were some familiar bits in it. Until recently, I probably hadn't watched either of the sequels in years. They're very different.
That is a nice way of putting it.
Watching 2 with my daughter shortly after watching 1, the feel and the tone and the acting are so different, it almost feels like it's not the same family. And obviously they've been through some trauma, so there's that in there. The way that especially Craig T. Nelson portrays Steve in the second film, it's weird. His acting choices are strange in this. We don't get the funny, before, after.
Before, after, before, after, before, after.
And them chilling out and smoking weed in their bed. And
which, by the way, we didn't mention that, like, one of the best scenes in that entire movie is like, look, these people can be cool too, but they are parents.
And actually another thing about the original that has struck me as odd is when Tangina's instructing them to tell Carol Ann that they're going to punish her if she doesn't do what they ask her to do. And Craig T. Nelson says, I've never hit the children, or I've never spanked the children. And for me back then in 1982 going, that who doesn't spank their children? Because it was unusual for back then to me to hear that.
That is, thinking about that, it is.
Most kids I knew got spanked when they were growing up in the 70s and 80s.
And in the 90s.
I almost wish they had just gone with a different family.
I'm with you.
Because they don't feel like the freaky freelings from the first film.
We'll paint the car different colors, kind of day glow, like we used to do when we were kind of freaky, you know, the freaky freelings on the road again, you know, that the family whose house disappeared. Watch them find it, Diane.
I get that it's PTSD for him, and he's fine with the downward mobility like he mentions, and living off her mom, and not having a house, and not having a TV, and all these things that basically terrorize them in the first film. I think it comes down a lot to the direction and the script. And I also found it weird that the writers were also the producers of the film. And obviously we have people that do all three, write, produce, and direct. But I don't recall many times seeing written and produced by, and then, you know, a pair of names, which seems kind of weird to me.
Well, that's because they wrote the script for the first movie. Michael Grace and Mark Victor are the guys who wrote the script for the first movie.
Oh, I thought Poltergeist was a Spielberg.
Well, he wrote it as well, but it's their...
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's why they produced this one. You know what's really funny, Mark? If we really do a little bit of the transitive property here, pretty obvious to me how much of that script Spielberg wrote.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. I mean, if you really want to throw some people under the bus, which seems to be what everybody's doing with Tobe Hooper, throw Michael Grace and Mark Victor under the bus. I have nothing against them, but if you're like dead set on throwing someone under the bus, why don't you throw them under the bus? Because look at the second movie. It is not good. It's really not. And oh, by the way, these are the two guys who worked on the script for fucking Cool World. My God, we know how much we both love Bakshi films.
It's not a slog to get through. It's just we've got some odd choices. And we've got some very 80s choices with the opening and the whole magical Indian, that whole trope throughout.
Explain something to me, though. Why is there a magical Indian when it's determined very quickly on into the movie has nothing to do with Native Americans, but a bunch of, like, crazy cult settlers, right?
I think it's just an 80s thing. And it's also really weird how negative... This is the one thing that really bothered me about this. Seeing as that they were the freaky freelings and hippies and all that when they were younger.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed, lab-proven to work fast, and proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
They are really antagonistic toward Taylor. And not just Steve. Diane, she is really upset when he is putting the face paint on Robbie.
Yeah.
To the point of like, don't touch my kid or stay away from, don't give him these weird ideas. And I was really thrown off by that because I thought, they seemed much more liberal in the first film. That whole idea of being frightened of the other, and it just didn't seem to fit their characters to me. But I could do without all that really tropey stereotyping of him.
Oh, okay, explain to me in the first movie who were the dead people in the plot in the first movie. The way they explain it in the first movie, not as we know it in the second movie. In the first movie, the dead people that live under their house are Native Americans?
No.
Really?
It's just a cemetery. Yeah, that's a thing that gets conflated.
Well, given that they have a magical Native American shaman in the second movie, I can't exactly blame the people who get it conflated.
It's just that they moved you moved the cemetery and you didn't move the bodies.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why?
Until it's not.
Karen James, or James what's his name?
James Karen.
James Karen. He says,
don't worry about it. After all, it's not ancient tribal burial ground. It's just people.
But a lot of people, that's one of those Mandela effects, too, with that film.
It's also from The Simpsons. They literally say Indian burial ground on The Simpsons episode where they rip off Poltergeist.
Mom, Dad, look! It's an ancient Indian burial ground. Man, this place has got everything.
An ancient Indian what?
But I don't think that, in the second one, I don't think that they say it's Indian burial ground either. It's just below where the cemetery was are the cult. It's like even further down are where the cult members are buried. I do appreciate that it dealt with a cult because I'm always fascinated by that, because one of the first major news stories of my young life was the Jonestown Massacre. And I remember seeing those images in newspapers and on TV, and it really freaked me out. When movies throw in a religious cult or something like that, I always kind of perk up my ears a little bit more. And I didn't remember that from seeing it, so many years ago. I just thought Cain was like a weird preacher man or something that was terrorizing the family.
Well, I just feel like it feels a little cheap to all of a sudden be like, oh, no, it wasn't the graveyard. There was like something under the graveyard that was worse than... You don't have to do that. The problem with the character of Cain is not interesting. Cain is not at all interesting because they give him no characterization. He's just this guy who walks around very out of place, mind you, in 1986, the way he dresses. He looks like the Quaker Oats man. And he's walking around in broad daylight. No one is fazed. And he is existing in 1986 looking like a man of the cloth from the late 1800s. There is so much that they could have done to examine that character. And they didn't. And again, if you're going to introduce a character like that, either don't introduce a character like that or give us some backstory, but don't introduce it and then do absolutely nothing.
The error I find with that is that, this is kind of to your point, is yes, so it's not just they built the houses over the cemetery, there was something worse underneath.
Convenient.
Yeah, and they retcon Cain into being the beast from the first film.
The great beast, Cain.
The beast, to me, is the big head that pops out of the closet in the first film. That's what right. I figure is the beast. Why do we need to personify that? That takes the energy away from that for me. To be ambiguous and what is the beast, and people have different ideas about what the beast is based on maybe your upbringing, being raised in a Christian home. We always associate the beast with who they're talking about in Revelation, and is that what they're talking about, or is it just more of a generic name? But no, now it's some religious leader that took his people out to California and they all died and got buried on the exact spot where Quest of Verity pops up hundreds of years later, or 100 years later.
Why couldn't they have just had it where Cain is the form that the beast takes?
Which maybe that's what they were going for, but it seems like it's reversed.
It seems the other way around, yeah. Which to me makes less sense, because if you're doing something like this, and at least in the way I would think you would write it, is if you're dead set on introducing a character like this, just say he was an evil person and the Beast is taking his form.
Right.
Because that would allow the Beast to go out into the world and do things, because if the Beast exists like that thing from the first movie, it can't do that out in public looking the way that it did, like, obviously.
Would think if you're trying to attract a young kid, the form would be something more appealing to a young child. An old man who is creepy looking already,
right,
in that getup is not going to be somebody that a young girl is going to go running to with open arms. So it sort of doesn't make any sense at all. There are some fun things. The braces scene with Robbie, and I like the technical aspect of that, and the effects are pretty decent in this. I noticed when I watched it with Cleo, I was like, he looks quite a bit older all of a sudden in this scene. And then when we watched it yesterday, she noticed, she's like, yeah, Carol Ann looks a little bit older too. So I think that was a reshoot, at least part of that scene. Because, when you're that age, even if it's 6 months later or 3 or 4 months later, you look a lot different. But we've got to talk about the worm, because that, to us, is the best part of the movie.
It is the most, again, to your point, it's the part of the movie that makes the least sense. In contrast to the last movie, all of a sudden, it's possession.
I love, though, that when he's drinking that, we get a zoom into the worm and its eye opens, and you're like, what the hell? The effects are fun in that when he starts regurgitating the worm. We've got a little bit of kind of stop motion, and then obviously it's just sort of hanging out the side of his face, and then as it gets bigger, it's in his, something that he's holding in his mouth. I love effects scenes like that because each setup was a completely different, or each shot was a completely different setup, and they had to do all these different things. Then it finally comes out all the way. It's like an animatronic figure, just keeps growing and growing. And then we have an actual actor in there, a disabled actor who lost both his legs and one of his arms in Vietnam, playing the worm figure as it continues to grow and into something bigger. The part that precedes that, after Steve drinks that whole scene between he and Diane is really off-putting and so out of character with the rest of the film, and definitely with the first film, where we get totally rapey. And I didn't remember that at all. So when we were watching it with my daughter, I was like, oh, this is really not cool. That kind of sums up the movie for me, like that icky section. And then we get into kind of some fun special effects, and then it goes a little bit crazy with that and the whole scene in the garage and them escaping that house.
I will say, for the end of the film, as someone who'd never seen it before, this movie is just a movie about a different family. The actors just happen to be the same. That has to be, that's just the kind of the long and the short of it. I mean, that scene at the end of the movie completely destroys any kind of leftover attachment I had to these characters. Because that scene at the end of the movie is really not, it makes no sense. It's like that scene at the end of the third Conjuring movie, where it's just like, this is too much. Like, it's essentially the same thing. It's like a character doing something so out of character, it doesn't even make plot sense. It's like way too much. Because the character wasn't even acting like the character beforehand, especially the character of Steve in this movie. This movie is just, it's not bad. It's just a shame that the people who are playing the characters in the first movie are still in this movie playing the same characters. Because they're not the same characters at all. At all, at all, at all, at all.
And I wonder again if that was maybe the original intent, was to have this be a different kind.
An anthology.
And the studio was like, no, you got to get them back. And I have no, this is totally conjecture on my part, but it's one of those things that happens where scripts that a studio has get morphed into a sequel for Die Hard or for Saw or whatever.
Or Under Siege.
Yeah, it's that same kind of thing almost, where we intended for this to be a totally different family. No. No one's going to come back to see a different family. Even though one of the actresses is no longer with us, and we're not even going to broach that in this.
Oh God!
And I really wish they had. I wish they had just had a throwaway line, which my understanding is that was the original intent, was to say that she's off at college, which makes perfect sense and wouldn't be an issue, but they just ignore it altogether.
Why did they ignore it? It makes it worse. Like, yeah, the poor woman was murdered, for God's sakes, and you're not even going to address effectively one of the only movies that she was in that anybody has any sort of recollection of, unless you're like kind of a hyper fan of it. She worked in TV almost exclusively. Actually, this is her only theatrical role. And you don't even want to give her character. I mean, it's very strange.
I don't know if they thought they were being more respectful by not doing that. Because I kept thinking about when I saw it way back then.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
You know, I knew that she was dead already, and I'm glad they didn't recast it, because for one thing, there really was not anything for her to do in the first movie. She's a fun character. I love it when she flips off the construction workers, and she has attitude and works as comic relief a little bit when she is in the movie, but she's really not. As a character, she's not in the movie all that much. It wouldn't be a big deal to say Dana's away at college or whatever, or she doesn't want to live with us. You know, she was traumatized and she's old enough to live on her own, whatever it is. But to just ignore it just seems like a weird choice that they made.
It's not a choice that they would make now. No studio in their right mind would do that now. They don't even say for Dominique at the end of the movie or anything.
Right, yeah.
And she had only passed away like barely after she had only been murdered. Like barely after the first movie had come out?
Either right before or right after it came out. It was very soon.
It was later in the year. It was November of 82. Yeah.
But I think weird choices is sort of what sums up the first sequel.
Honestly, you know what they should have done? They should have recast her character.
I don't know. I think that might have been a little bit...
Is it any worse than what they did?
I don't know if it's any worse, but again, I kind of go back to there really wasn't much point with that character in the first film in the first place, so what would she have done in the second one?
We'll never know, not because the actress passed away, but because they didn't even attempt to do anything. It feels like they were saddled with a character from the first movie that they were just like, well, I guess we don't have to write anything. Yeah, that's awful, but no, I guess you don't, so...
Well, and that sort of leads into the third film, because the only person that comes back, or the only people, I should say, are Carol Ann and Tangina. So we get a whole different family, and which is weird in and of itself, and a whole different scenario. Again, it's fun for what it is, but why does it need to be a Poltergeist movie? And I guess it's just to cash in on that name. I enjoyed this one basically for the practical effects, and that is nearly it. We have, once again, a strange family dynamic, unlike the first film, with Tom Skerritt and Nancy Allen, and she has this whole thing because Laura Flynn Boyle isn't her daughter, and Carol Ann isn't related to her either in any way, so we get this weird animosity.
How is Carol Ann not related to her?
She's his niece. Nancy Allen is his second wife, from what I understand, because Laura Flynn Boyle is not her daughter.
No. Diane's sister is Pat.
Oh, okay.
Nancy Allen's character.
Okay.
Which makes even less sense, right? Because why does Nancy Allen not like her own niece?
Right, but she doesn't, though, and that's the weird thing. Yeah, you're right.
It's very strange.
I'm getting confused.
It's okay, the movie's confusing.
Laura Flynn Boyle is not her daughter. She doesn't want to take ownership of either of them. And it's sort of more towards the end of the film, like rewrites or something, where the animosity becomes much more apparent later on. I like the idea, like you said when you were watching it, self-contained horror unit. These movies that take place in one giant location that has everything you need.
It's cool.
Got your hotel. We've got, he works there somewhere in an office there. There's a mall. There's a grocery store. There's everything you need. And there's a lot of cool movies that utilize that setting. And I really like all the work with the mirrors. And it's kind of fun to try and figure out.
It's like the best part of the movie.
It's fun to figure out, how did they do that shot? How did they do this shot? Is it a Poltergeist movie, though? Just because it has Carol Ann and Tangina in it.
Okay, look, I'd never seen this before, so this opinion, again, take this with a grain of salt. This is not a Poltergeist movie. But also, the character of Henry Kane is in this movie again, with even less justification, even less anything going on. It makes even less sense in this movie.
And they did recast because that guy died.
Julian Beck passed away, yeah.
Shortly after the second movie, they stuck with that. It's weird and I think unnecessary because you could have it be just the building this time. They kind of always hit the electrical issues in the film. It's even in the first movie, with the TV, and it generates from the TV. And in the second film, they use electricity, spirits, or whatever they are. In this one, Kane and his cronies utilize electricity, at least in the garage scene, and to a certain extent with the braces. And it's used again here in different ways where electricity goes off and on, and things happen because of storms and this and that and the other thing. But it's really the mirrors and that other side, the two worlds coming together with and through the mirrors. And that's the stuff that I think when I watched it with Cleo that we really enjoyed, was looking to see what was different in maybe a reflection, what happens in the reflection. Just being amazed that they can do all this filming with all these mirrors around and not catch crew members and cameras and things like that.
That's the best part of the entire movie, is Gary Sherman and, everyone involved with the production of the film just going, it's a Poltergeist movie, okay, but that doesn't mean we can't do something weird. And so, they do something weird. I enjoyed this movie more than the second one, but this movie is 20 minutes too long. And this movie is 98 minutes. So I am effectively campaigning to have this movie taken out of being a movie status. But there are a lot of good things in this movie. There are a lot of interesting things. Look, Heather O'Rourke, it is a shame. It is this big... look, Dominic Dunn's a shame. Julian Beck's a shame. But Heather O'Rourke feels like the biggest shame. For one specific reason. She seemed genuinely gifted as an actress. Period. And, I didn't know what to expect after the first and second movie. In this movie, she's given a lot more agency. She's a really good actress. And it is a real shame. A genuine shame.
I think she performs better in this one than in the second one.
Yes.
And I believe that just has to go to direction, because everybody's kind of weird in the second one. And definitely not on the level they were in the first one. Yeah, she gets to do some more stuff in this and act creepy and be her mirror self and
wisecrack.
Lots of wisecracks.
Not a precocious little turd either.
As we get deeper into the 80s, there's going to be a lot more wisecracking going on, regardless of what the movie is. That just comes with the territory. You could have cut all of the Laura Flynn Boyle stuff out and tightened this up a little bit. That pool scene with her and her friends, or I guess they're friends. They don't act like great friends, but that was way too long. Like you say, there's some fun stuff. I think I enjoy it more than the second one as well. It's not as off-putting as the second one tends to slide into for a number of reasons. Stereotyping and getting rapey. Neither of them come close to comparing to the first.
Isn't Poltergeist essentially the same conversation as like Jaws?
Yeah, I mean, most franchises, they're...
I'm talking more about the heights that it came down from.
Oh, yeah.
Jaws and Poltergeist are both widely considered to be some of the greatest films of all time. And I don't think Poltergeist 3 is even in the running for good horror movie that anyone should watch. It is a weird movie. It is a movie that tries to recast the entire main original cast, but not recast them, but recast them at the same time, right?
Right.
Tom Skerritt's kissing a child on the lips that is not related to him. But he's acting like he's related to her. It's very odd.
Yeah, that's why I get confused. And it seems like he is warmer to her. That's where that confusion comes in, like I was saying. Why I think
it makes no
why
sense.
She doesn't take ownership of either of the kids is because they're not related. But you corrected me on that. It just feels that way, though. And he seems to care more about the girls than she does. And
you didn't even mention the Dr. Seaton character.
Oh, he's horrible.
What is even the point?
That gets so old to me where dismiss it. Dismiss everything she says. Dismiss it. Dismiss.
She's making me see the things that she wants. Like, dude, that explanation is more flawed than just saying that she may be actually seeing something. It's a strange character to add to this movie, right?
I think another thing that could have been cut, we get that she's special.
Why is she special all of a sudden, too?
Well, because she has second sight. Just like in the second film when she's picking out the colored yarn for Grandma Jess and doesn't have to look at it. And
yeah, but there's something called subtlety that the second movie actually had. Why does she have to be special?
Because that explains why the spirits are after her, Chris.
All the way in Chicago?
Yeah. They gotta have her. They got to get to the light. And she's the only way they can get there. Because they were bad. Speaking of bad...
I was about to say, I don't understand the third movie at all. I want you to understand this. We're going to go to the remake before we even talk about what happens to Zelda Rubinstein in this movie. Come on.
That is so amazing. One of the...
wildest things I've ever seen. Zelda Rubinstein turning into a zombified maquette, falling to the ground, and then exploding.
That's pretty great. That's... my favorite effect.
Me next time.
The worm is my favorite effect in the second one, and that is so sudden and shocking. Bye, Tangina.
My favorite effect in this movie is Nancy Allen forgetting she's a talented actress. Carol Ann! Or Tom Skerritt. We're free! We did it! We're safe! I love you, honey! Like, what is this acting you are doing? This is a choice, but not a choice for this kind of film. The one that's supposed to be taken seriously.
I think was some of the stuff that was reshot.
It feels like it.
Probably not all that happy to be coming back, especially since Heather O'Rourke had passed away by that point. And
right.
So
like, that's the thing about this movie that is almost unfair, right? It's a little unfair to be critical of this movie, in a way, right? Because, like, Carol Ann, Heather O'Rourke passing away... they obviously had to change the ending. I mean, there's a character that disappears into the ether that never comes back for seemingly no reason other than they couldn't probably get him back for reshoots. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very strange. It's unfortunate because it's like picking on a movie that doesn't deserve it. Because, this series already has enough problems as it is. 3 actors died in the span of like 4 years. 2 of them being people that have ostensibly no... realistic health issues. I mean, they shouldn't. Heather O'Rourke was a child. Dominic Dunn is, a 18, 19-year-old. Like, this series is cursed, but not in the way that cursed films would like for you to believe it is. It's sad. It's just sad.
Speaking of cursed films, how about that remake?
Speaking of sad, we should mention there was a TV show I've never seen.
I totally forgot that even existed, so...
It has nothing to do with the series. It just has the name Poltergeist. It ran for 4 seasons.
Oh, really?
On Showtime and Sci-Fi, yeah.
Oh, interesting. I have to check it out someday.
It's a story about a secret society known as the Legacy and their efforts to protect humankind from occult dangers. Despite bearing the Poltergeist name, there is no connection, aside from the title.
Oh, okay, so it's not really part of the universe, then.
Well, I mean, it's In as much as it has the name, sure.
Okay. Something that is connected is the remake. I say this on my show. I don't have anything against modern remakes as a rule, and watch most of them that come out when they hit a streaming service that I subscribe to or a cable channel that I subscribe to. I usually give them a shot. Basically did the same thing for this. When it showed up on Netflix, I sat with my movie buddy Ronnie and we watched it. I didn't care for it and hadn't watched it again until you so graciously put it on your Plex.
I like Sam Rockwell, so it wasn't a hard sell to get me to watch the remake, but I will say you have a massively charismatic actor in Sam Rockwell and you make him be as uncharismatic as humanly possible. It's very odd. There's not enough of the good stuff being good old Mr. Jared Harris. There's not enough. You know what it felt like? It felt like it could have been the Fright Night remake. Do you know what I mean?
Not really.
You've seen the Fright Night remake, right?
Yes.
With David Tennant. Like, that movie's cool, right?
It's one of the ones that it doesn't bother me.
But it does something interesting with the source material enough. Poltergeist felt like at times it was getting to having something different to do than the first movie. And then it stops and then it ends.
Watching it the second time, I paid more attention to, because I didn't really remember much about it other than, like you, being disappointed in the usage of Sam Rockwell. And I generally like him in just about everything that I see him in. I even like him as a scuzzball when he plays scuzzballs. There was something very off-putting about his character in this that kept me from enjoying his performance. And I don't know if it was kind of that gender twist thing that they did, but he seemed unnecessarily antagonistic towards his family, and they didn't dive into that well enough. And I know that he's out of work and does these reckless things with money, and then that gets dropped when the poltergeist action starts, and it goes nowhere, and it doesn't really inform anything later on. But it seemed like you're saying, they wanted to do something different, but then there are these odd moments where it's almost an exact replication of the original film. There are certain scenes that they take whole cloth from the first movie. I remembered it being much more different from the first movie and realized as I was watching it, no, they took a lot of the same stuff. The one thing that I did kind of enjoy is the nods that they gave to the sequels, which I wouldn't have picked up on back when I watched it the first time because I probably hadn't watched the sequels recently. The thing with Sam Rockwell drinking and then vomiting up worms, to me that was a nod to part 2.
Had to be. And a nod to the first one too, right? It's a nod with all to both, realistically. Yeah.
Exactly. Into the sink. You think he's going to start peeling his face off or something. The black hole in the garage felt like a nod to part 3 with that hole in the garage. A different kind of garage, but same idea. So I enjoyed that, and actually I think my daughter has picked up on a couple of those too. Like, oh, that's...
Well, there's the big one. The big one is the plot from 2 and 3. In the first one, you don't know why they captured her. In the second and third one, it's they wanted her to be able to cross so that they could cross over. And that's what the Jared Harris character ends up doing, which is something from 2 and 3, which is interesting that's again, it's like the first movie, like you said, with some of the sequel action added in.
It seems to be, like we talked the other day about the Friday the 13th remake, where they cram the first 3 movies into the opening, or part of it into the opening and then in the rest of the film. Well, let's take bits and pieces from all of the original Poltergeists.
It's very smart.
I came away enjoying it more this second time, and as I've probably mentioned to you as we've discussed things, it has a lot to do with watching these with my daughter instead of just watching them as a person who tries not to be cynical when watching a movie, but it's a lot easier to not be as cynical when you know the person you're watching it with is not going to have any cynicism. It's just a movie for them, and there's no why did they make this choice and why did they make that choice and blah, 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 you know.
You're saying when you watch movies with your daughter, it's not all about Mark Begley's cinema sins.
I mean, really it is. It's like, I'm not going to nitpick this. I may point out some stuff that I think is sort of silly, and she does the same thing, but it's like, we're just enjoying this as a movie, and so it makes him go down a little bit easier, I think, because the first time I watched it with my friend, we were rolling our eyes half the time. Again, I think that was kind of being cynical. Like, what's the point of this remake? If they're not going to go different enough, take the differences further, what's the point? Either do the shot-for-shot Psycho remake or go completely different. Other than the family names being different, I was surprised that they're not the Freelings. They're something else. It's basically the same story.
Not basically, it is. Like,
we've got the tree.
Yeah, you got the clown.
You got multiple clowns instead of just one clown, so that's a difference, I guess.
But neither of the clowns in this movie are as scary as the one in the first one.
Right.
I mean, CGI clowns are cool and all, but I think it kind of beat that shit into the ground. Yeah, this obviously comes out before it. Thank you people on the internet for getting angry in advance, but it's weird because when it deviates from the script, not when I say script, I say the script of the first one. When it deviates from the script of the first one, it's when it's most successful. When it's just doing, like, the same old Poltergeist song and dance, I'm just like, the original did this better. And this could have been really something special. I mean, the cast is good. Jared Harris, Rosemary DeWitt, Sam Rockwell. Nope. You have one of the most charismatic, the most effortlessly charismatic actors I can think of, who's charismatic all the time. And you have him be uncharismatic. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, almost to a point, it seems. Like, he's going to be...
Almost to prove a point.
Well, in that whole dinner scene, and I remember thinking, oh yeah, this goes somewhere. This goes to that issue of his problems. They go to that dinner where he's basically trying to get a job, and then that's it. You don't hear anything about that after that. It's like, why did they go? Right. Why did they even go to dinner? It was to...
So their kids could be left alone?
Exactly. And...
Plot convenience.
You can't show the gun unless you're going to use it later on.
It's true. Don't bring out the table if somebody's not going through it.
As a whole, I enjoyed it more this second time. And it's one of those movies, again, if my daughter was like, hey, Dad, let's watch the remake. Okay. Sure, why not?
Do you know who was considered for the role that Sam Rockwell played?
I have no idea.
Tom Cruise and Richard Armitage. Tom Cruise in a Poltergeist remake? Really, guys?
Yeah, that doesn't... Well, I mean, you can consider anybody for a role, Chris.
That's fair. It's weird that they would consider Tom Cruise.
I could see him doing it, though. It would have been a much higher budgeted movie, and they probably could have done a lot of other things with it.
Boy, couldn't they, yeah.
I would have been very surprised by that.
Richard Armitage would have been an interesting choice, though.
I'm not sure who that is.
He plays the Red Dragon in the Hannibal TV show. Thorin Oakenshield in the Hobbit films. Well, that's all I can give you.
The Red Dragon in the Hannibal show?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a Red Dragon in the Hannibal show.
It's in the 3rd season of the show.
Oh. I'll look him up later.
He's a good-looking dude. He was in, what's that movie called? Into the Storm? The Twister ripoff?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Oh, wow, that's the biggest shame of them all. But he would have been good. I just don't understand why you cast Sam Rockwell. It's a very odd choice.
It was an odd casting choice. I agree with that completely. Because it just doesn't...
It doesn't play to his strengths.
It just feels undercooked.
And on top of everything else, they waste Rosemary DeWitt. It's not like she's given anything to do either.
Yeah, they really lay it out all on the kids, and not successfully, I don't think, this time.
They didn't even change which kid disappeared. They could have done that.
And then you have everybody up in arms. You know, you've got like the Pet Sematary remake scenario there, where they kill a different kid, and blah, blah, blah.
Maybe people need to stop getting up in arms about things when they can just go watch the original. If a remake gets made and your response is it's not enough like the original,
right?
That's a good thing. In some respects, not necessarily. I mean, there are things that will prove me wrong, and I'm sure that they are out there, and I'm not discounting that. But this movie could have been more successful and was more successful when it wasn't kowtowing to the original Poltergeist.
I agree, though. I think you need to do something different. To your point, with a successful, beloved movie, do something way more different than what you're doing, because it's too similar.
Yeah.
And the changes that you have made don't necessarily make a whole heck of a lot of sense.
I like that they're like a family down on their luck. I like that idea. I think that's smart. I think it's like, well, this is like all we could afford. Like, I like that. That's an interesting conceit. It's definitely a change from the hippies turned yuppies of the original film. It's the first scene and that's it. And that scene where they're at dinner. But then all of a sudden he like just goes and buys stuff for them. And like that is literally never explained.
I get that he does that because he doesn't want to look like a failure in their eyes, but then it goes nowhere after that. Except as a device to get the kid the drone.
Yeah. There's another scene where they're like, you know, you can make a lot of money off of saying your house is haunted.
Right.
They kind of tease that too, and then they don't go there.
There's a lot of that.
It's a weird movie.
A lot of that setup and no payoff. And, you know, the down and out thing actually harkens back to the first sequel again, where they're, you know, living off Grandma Jess. So there's sort of another connection there with that.
Yeah.
It brings up the point that my daughter and I discussed when we watched, or actually when we were talking about it yesterday. We didn't rewatch the remake. She said, yeah, the family's a lot less likable in the remake. And I said, I totally agree. And I said, you know, that's one of those modern contrivances in movies these days where we have to present people as more realistic. So that means that they kind of have to be assholes. I didn't say that to her, but it's like people think they have to be well-rounded. So not everybody's perfect like the Freelings. But the Freelings weren't perfect. It's just that they were likable. They were nice. They cared about each other. When Diane says, when Carol Ann goes through her and she says, I could feel her soul. I mean, it's moving to me, even as an adult, and even having seen that movie dozens of times. When she says that line, I choke up.
She went through my soul.
And there's nothing like that in any of the other films. They try to do it in the second one when her mom visits her after she dies so suddenly and quickly after the movie starts. They really try to hit that again, and it does not work like in the first film. Yeah, these people the parents are kind of weird to the kids and to each other. And
like, what do they do for a living?
She's a writer and he doesn't have a job.
She's a writer?
Yeah, they mentioned.
Really? She never wrote a single word in the entire movie. I mean, it's weird. It's just like a weird throwaway line.
Couple mentions, and he espouses her talents, and that's great. I mean, I'm glad he's supportive of her. It's almost a convenience to where they have to be at home.
That's my issue with this movie is, again, it had an opportunity to really deviate. It's like it set itself up to deviate, and then as soon as it got close, it was like, never mind, just back to the usual, back to what you expect. You're here to see a Poltergeist movie, so we're going to give you all the Poltergeisty stuff. And they do. They pretty much give you all the Poltergeisty stuff you could ever want. I will say that the other side looked cool. You know what the funny thing is? You know who did a better Poltergeist remake without being actually Poltergeist? Insidious.
Yeah.
Essentially a Poltergeist remake, right?
I believe that's what I thought when I first saw that. Like, oh, okay, here we go. Same idea.
It even has the actress that is more talented that looks very similar playing the mother in that film. Because that film has Rosemary Byrne as the mom, as opposed... I mean, Rosemary DeWitt's fine, but Rose Byrne is amazing. Insidious has Patrick Wilson actually being able to be charismatic.
You mean he's not charismatic as Ed Warren?
Oh, he is. But Sam Rockwell...
I get you.
Sam Rockwell's not allowed to be charismatic. Shit, cast Patrick Wilson in this movie. In Poltergeist. Why not?
Just grab the cast from Insidious and put them on it.
Yeah, I got an idea. Here's your booking, Booker man. Poltergeist remake The Russo brothers. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. Perfection.
That would confuse so many people. I thought this was a Conjuring movie.
I think it would be great, though. I mean, that's what I felt like every time I watch Insidious. I'm like, wait, is this The Conjuring? No, it's not. Never mind. But really, though, like, the Insidious movies are just a better Poltergeist. Because doesn't in that movie the kid's, like, in a coma or something?
Yeah.
Not physically disappeared, but, like, mentally disappeared.
He's on another plane or on the other side, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Not Poltergeist. Do you actually think we're going to get a remake? Do you think that's actually happening?
I haven't even heard about that, so I don't know. I've been seeing stuff. We're getting a new Christine. We're getting a new this. We're getting a new that. I don't throw my hat into the ring in discussions on stuff like that because, again, I'm not bothered by remake. Oh, Christine isn't a remake of John Carpenter's Christine. It's another... Okay, that's one thing that bugs me. There's going to be a new Firestarter, possibly a new Christine. They're going back to an original source. They're not remaking the movie that was previously made. I hate it.
Just like Running Man
is presented in that way. I saw a tweet yesterday. Brian Fuller's remaking John Carpenter's Christine. Better leave it alone or something. And I'm like, he's not remaking John Carpenter's Christine.
From the source
he's making another version of it. Let's get this straight, people. But I don't have an issue with that, with reboots, remakes, requels, prequels, whatever. I kind of wait until the movie comes out. If it's a property that I have some investment in, we'll most likely watch it at some point. And so if they remake Poltergeist, now these are remakes because that was an original idea in film, I'm fine with it and I'll most likely watch it. But as far as conjecture as to whether it'll happen or anything like that, I wouldn't even...
I'm more just surprised that they're remaking it less than a decade after they've already remade it.
Well, they did that with... they've done that with a number of movies recently, though. We get a couple of... Spider-Man, for one thing.
I kind of assumed that Spider-Man was going to be what you went to, but Spider-Man's different.
I know, but there have been some horror remakes that have happened pretty quickly after the last remake, and I just can't think of one right now other than Cabin Fever.
Oh, yeah.
But there is one that I believe happened more quickly even than that one, and that one happened pretty quickly.
Like you said, I have no problem with them either. They're going to happen either way, and there are a lot of good ones. There are a lot of bad ones.
Yeah.
Doing things from source material is very different than remaking a movie. Like you said, it's two different expectations.
It's been happening since movies were invented. This is not a modern thing. Movies have been rebooted and remade from the beginning. It's just a lot of times you didn't know about it because they used a different title or whatever. Alfred Hitchcock has remade his own movies, stuff like that. It's just...
Star Wars is essentially a remake of Seven Samurai.
You're tilting at windmills when you worry about remakes and no new ideas in Hollywood. That is the nature of the beast, and there's absolutely zero point in being bothered by any of it.
They're not going to stop making remakes just because people don't like them. The reason they make remakes is because it's an easy door to open to a fandom that already exists. It's not rocket science. It makes perfect sense. Like you said, why wouldn't you remake something that is already popular?
Yep.
It actually makes so much sense. I understand and I appreciate why people don't like it, but yeah, don't fight it. Come on.
Come on, people. Climb on board the remake train.
Well, I'm not going to, I don't know if we'll go that far. Hold on, he said that, not me. I'm just kidding. I would agree. Look, there have been enough good ones where it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
If they were all bad, that's a completely different story, but they're not all bad.
And there have been plenty that have been serviceable and are fun to watch, and I rattled some off the other day after we talked about The Conjuring. Yeah, it just doesn't bother me.
It shouldn't bother anybody, frankly.
But there are going to be people that are going to be bothered by it, and there's nothing you can do about that because everybody's their own person.
The thing about this series for me is, obviously with a lot of horror series, diminishing returns the longer it goes on, but the starting point here is so strong that because it's so strong that it does kind of carry the rest of the series off to the end. the thing we didn't mention, the thing that I am glad that 3 was the end, because 3 technically ended on a cliffhanger.
True.
Kane comes back after crossing over to the other side, which is what he was trying to do the entire time. All right.
Got it.
I enjoyed these movies. I am not at all upset or feel like these movies did not warrant a watch. And I am glad that I watched 2 and 3 because I had never seen them and I enjoyed 3 a lot. I mean, 3 has its moments. It's pretty weird. So is 2.
2 and 3 are weird. The remake is weird and strangely familiar. And the first one is a stone cold classic. All props to Tobe Hooper and Steven Spielberg and everybody else who worked on it. They made a great movie. If
you have any ideas about why remakes are good or bad, let them stand as their own movie and judge them that way first. Don't judge them against the movie they're remaking. Not immediately, because it's never going to live up. And the Poltergeist remake isn't good for reasons that have nothing to do with the fact it's a Poltergeist movie. It's a lot of just missed opportunities and miscasting.
Yeah.
Like, that has nothing to do with Poltergeist. Has nothing to do with the fact it's a Poltergeist movie.
And strange choices, which are, I think, indicative of the 2 sequels as well. A lot of weird choices.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Well, Chris, where can people find you out in the World Wide Webs?
They can find me at Kulturecast.com, where I talk about movies once a week, and at cstachiw.com. That is my link tree to all the stuff that I work on. And I want to thank you for having me on your podcast. This has been fun. Getting to talk about childhood trauma is always fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on. And, we're switching it up here. You've been crazy enough to have me on a number of times. So, we'll keep swapping episodes and stuff.
Yeah, might as well. I don't get to talk about horror movies as much as I would like because my podcast isn't a horror movie podcast. But horror is my genre of choice. So that's probably what I watch the most when I'm not watching things for the podcast. So
I am the same. And I also, speaking of Linktree, I also just created a Linktree, which I discovered you talking about on the Gone in 60 Seconds episode earlier today. And wow. I didn't know that this was something that Mike White made fun of. And I'm curious as to why that is something you would make fun of. But it is a handy little tool, and I really only use it for Instagram because Instagram is shit for links, and you can only have one link on your profile, and you can't put links in your posts. You can link in stories, but most people don't look at my stories. Yeah, I have a link tree on Instagram that will take you to all the different sites and also all the different podcast applications where you can find Wake Up Heavy. So I think that's useful for people who are beholden to a certain service like Stitcher or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Right. So yeah, check out Chris's stuff. Check out you know where to find me if you're listening to this show. And take a look at Instagram and hit that link tree for all kinds of fun stuff. All right, well, thanks once again, Chris, for being on the show. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Sometime around this same time, we will be sharing the Conjuring episode as well. So you can find that at wakeupheavy.com or at the Kulturecast. And give a listen to that. I guess they're kind of in a similar vein. Possession-y, spooky ghost story movies.
And we cover almost everything that both series franchises have to offer.
And the little things that they may have in common as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And have a great day.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann. Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.